Welcome. Thank you so much for being part of this session. We're so glad to spend a little time with you all. I'm Patsy Egan and I direct Atlas, and I'm here with a handful of colleagues to talk about some work that's been done recently in response to federal changes, teaching for justice, equipping adult educators with tools for today. So I want to just be sure you know who's coming today. So one second, let me make my way to my other screen. And if you are speaking today, go ahead and come on camera for a moment. Look at all these happy faces. So joining us, I already introduced myself. I'm Patsy, and Kaija with LAN, also International Institute, Kris with IMEBE, Cydnee with Literacy Minnesota, also doing work for Atlas, and Heather with Minneapolis Adult Education, also doing lots of things for Atlas these days as well. So thank you all for being part of this. And we're going to focus in these areas today. First, we'll share a little bit about LAN and Atlas work of late and some things that we've been able to connect on and collaborate to provide for you all. And then we'll move to IMEBE and work that's happening there and continues as they respond to all the important changes happening. And then some equity related PD so that you know what we already have, what's on tap, and what you might be able to take part in as makes sense for your programs. And then some citizenship updates. There's been some changes. So we want to be sure, keep you in the know of all the things that will make your work easier, we hope. So that's the plan for this afternoon. We're going to start here with some resources from LAN and from Atlas. First of all, this is in response to a couple things. Kaija Literacy Action Network did some survey early, I think it was late January, early February, talking about what kinds of challenges, what are the pressing needs of the field given recent changes at the federal level, and what can we do for you? And so from that information and without lots of conversations with colleagues, we landed on a couple of different things. And one of which is Resource Hub, so where you can go for really solid, up-to-date information about changes and what you need to know that's affecting adult education. And then also some resources for talking to students about changes. So that's where we'll focus today. I'll just start. So some of the work is being hosted on Atlas and some of the work is being hosted at Literacy Action Network. So we're really glad for this combined work and for our people behind the scenes, Wendy and Marisa, who have helped make all the website action possible. So on Atlas, you will be able to find lesson plans and classroom materials from a variety of sources. I think I will just take a moment, maybe after you talk about what's there, Kaija will go to each place and take a moment. But there's also information for citizenship teachers, and then the lesson plans that I'll describe in a moment are also on the Atlas website. So let me go there real fast, and then we'll go to LAN. Most of the things that we have been able to put together with the help of many hands are hosted here on the Social Studies and Civics Resources site. And when you go here, you'll see this is not new. We've had social studies resources for quite some time. But down here, you'll see Teaching for Justice. And then there's two categories, lesson collection and then other resources. And when you click on other resources, you see all of these. These are all new. So we were able to find, with the help of Kaija and Kara, someone with an immigration law background who curated these resources, helped us decide if it should be instructionally focused on Atlas or more advocacy focused on LAN. So I just want to be sure you know where those are. We're not going to take the time to explore them all this afternoon. Tell us what's on LAN's website.
Yeah, hi everyone. So for the Literacy Action Network, like Patsy mentioned, we've got a little bit more of like an advocacy and policy collection rather than like things you'd be using in your classrooms. So you can see we've got some toolkits for schools and teachers. A lot of these things are going to have a bit of a K-12 bend to them, but I think are adaptable to adult education specifically. And at least one of them has been shared to us by the immigration legal expert that we had, who was speaking at the kind of check-in event that we did about a month ago. And then we've also got any updates that we get in terms of Minnesota specific guidance. So like Keith Ellison wrote a letter. There was also a letter that came out from MDE, and information about immigration attorneys. So we've got a list of the organizations that do free immigration aid, and then also some of the recommended like low cost or potentially pro bono private attorneys that you could work with as well. And we, I think, are continuing to look to build these things out. So if you have more resources or things that you don't see here that you think would be good, then please, you can pass them to Patsy and myself, because I think this is going to be an evolving space. And yeah, Patsy's showing you can find them on our website. So there's like a landing page that has all of them there. And then if you use resources, one of the things I'm hoping we can do is, Patsy, I like how filtered yours is. So hopefully we can get ours so that we've got like anchors on those, so that they go a little bit directly. But as it is, I'd say like Control F this page and put in the words that you're looking for specifically until we've been able to get it a little bit more fine-tuned.
Go to you've all been to the land website, I'm sure, and then resources, and then know your rights and legal aid resources there if you are looking for the path. Thanks, Kaija. And I do want to highlight the lesson collective. So we have kind of the two parts, the two things that came out of the survey and other inquiries that we were getting was we want resource hubs, which you've just seen on Atlas and the land website around advocacy and instructional materials. And then another need people had was, how do I talk to my students about disability rights? How do I talk to my students about what's happening in the national parks? How do I talk to my students about an ice raid, for example? So I was able to find 12 dedicated, lovely adult educators who gave us some of their time to write lessons specifically about topics they wanted to dig into at different levels of instruction, and then found people to review those. And so we just had such an extraordinary response of generosity in the wake of all of these changes. And these lessons, this is just a handful. There are many more and more to come, but we wanted to highlight some of the topics that you'll find. And again, these are housed social studies because most of them are social studies, civics, and civic life sorts of topics. And the lesson collection is here. You'll see it says new in spring. And they are here, and some are not new. The ABE, IMABE curriculum, of course, has been around, and we wanted to highlight that, so it's up top. And then several new things and much more to come. So these are from people we know and trust who know our students, locally grown. So those are all available here. Again, social studies resource library, Teaching for Justice, and that is the lesson collective. I do want to draw your attention to, in the chat, as I'm navigating back to the slides, Megan, thanks for sharing that link. Instead of giving you a bazillion links during this session, we just put everything in one document. So be sure and take the time to open that document and save it somewhere. You might want to bookmark it. We will be updating as makes sense. Anything else, Kaija?
I think
I will
yeah, your highlights.
Yeah,
No,
so I'm just
go
gonna
forward with your highlights, absolutely.
Yeah, so I want to be sure we talk to you a little bit about what we're hearing from the field. So this from a colleague in Hopkins who writes that they used the disability rights lesson already and shared this. I'm not going to read it to you, but I'll give you a moment. Shout out to Land for providing such pretty pictures for us to use in PowerPoints. And one more testimonial. He writes, one of my students connected to the reading by sharing some of the supports her child has at our local high school. We all reflected on the accessibility of our workplaces and in our own school building that might not be there were it not for the actions described in the text that is used in this sample lesson. So good stuff happening by good people that's already being used. Thank you. All right. And let's hear more about what Land's up to. Go ahead, Kai.
Yeah, so just in terms of advocacy and different ways you can be engaging, we've got the like cool lesson plans and ways that you can be engaging in your classroom. And then these are some of the adult education tools or organizations with which you can get involved doing advocacy more externally. So obviously I'm here with the Literacy Action Network. I want to encourage everyone to make sure that you're a LAN member. You can check on the LAN website to see if you've got membership. It's an annual membership, and your memberships help support the advocacy work we do. One of the things that LAN does is every year we put together a platform, and then we work with our lobbyist at the Capitol to draft bills with legislators to help support different initiatives for adult education. And this year, we had a bill in the House and the Senate. It was an effort to increase funding for adult education. It's a tough year because the state has deficits and there's a lot of cuts happening everywhere. So we weren't able to get an increase this year, but we're hoping to get more next year. And also one of the things we do is make sure that we're not on the chopping block when a lot of the funding cuts do come. So that's also something that's important. You can get deeply involved with that kind of activity by joining our legislative committee. There's information on the website for how you can get involved with that. Since we are getting towards the end of this year's legislative session, by joining the legislative committee now, throughout the summer and into the fall is when you can be involved with helping make the decisions for what our platform is going to be next year. So I'd really like to encourage people who are interested in that kind of policy work to get involved with us. But then the other thing I want to share and I guess celebrate for advocacy that happened on Tuesday this week was Adult Education Day on the Hill. So yeah, we've got some photos here. It was a really great turnout. We're estimating we had about 500 people. I think we had 14 different programs come. We had students coming from as far as Bemidji. And you can see we just were able to fill the rotunda. We had some amazing student speakers. We had a volunteer tutor who was speaking, and then also an adult education instructor and 3 legislators who were supporting us. And this is, I think, one of the cool ways to advocate and help our students become advocates, because the Capitol can seem scary. Speaking to legislators can seem scary. And when you come together and you're able to see that, like, adult education is part of this huge ecosystem of programs, right? And it's not just your school, and you look around and the whole like rotunda is full of adult education learners. You're like, well, we're a part of something, and it's not as scary to come to the Capitol, and it's not as scary to tell legislators why it's important that we support our students. And also that our students feel like they have a place in the government and a place at the Capitol and can speak up for the things that they care about too. So thank you for everyone who participated in that. And also, hopefully we'll have an even bigger turnout next year. And then if we can go back really fast, Patsy, I'll just hit on a couple last things. I want to encourage everyone to, even if you don't want to join a committee for LAN, follow us on Instagram. We post highlights of things like this. We also share out additional resources for things that you can do to advocate and get connected to other statewide initiatives for adult education. And then the last thing is that if you do have LAN membership, you're a co-member, or you're also a member of COABE. And COABE is the federal advocacy organization for adult education. So they are the ones who are working in Washington, D.C. For our federal funding. And even though that is not the majority of what our funding for adult ed is, because we have such great support in Minnesota, yay Minnesota, it's still important that we have that advocacy. And they also have some cool resources. So 2 of the things that I highlighted is that they have a podcast called Advocast. And you can hear them talk about different ways people are advocating around the country for adult education and stories about different programs and students. And then the final resource I'm going to highlight is they've got a monthly public policy newsletter. And so one of the things that we heard in the listening session that we did last month was that people were wondering, like, where can I get like accurate news? Because there is so much happening and there are so many rumors. There are so many issues for which that is the case, and the Public Policy Pulse is going to only be a news source for the adult education section of that, but it's a good way to get a high-level overview of the things that are happening that impact adult education specifically. So you can sign up for that, and as Patsy mentioned, all the links for these things are in that single document. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate it. All right, and with that, we will go to our next person. So I am ABE. Kris, go ahead.
Thanks. So yeah, my name is Klas. My pronouns are they, them, and I am part of I am ABE. And so some of what I'm going to share today, we did share at the webinar a few weeks ago, but we're continuing to do more. So I kind of want to just introduce you to the I am ABE work if you're not familiar with it, and then share some of those things. First, as I said, I want to kind of just introduce what IMABE is and what we do. We actually we're a very flexible and ever-changing group of professionals in adult education across the state of Minnesota. Who do targeted projects with the goal specifically of amplifying student voices around issues that affect them. And we got our start during the first Trump administration. So you can decide how you feel about the fact that we're still doing this work 8 years later. But that initial project resulted in a 3-module curriculum at the beginning, intermediate, and high or GED levels around how students could communicate with the government and sort of share aspects of their identities that were under attack at that point. And that has continued to sort of fuel us and center the work that we want to keep doing. And this mnemonic here, our vowels, feels very appropriate for adult education. But it's also something that we come back to anytime we're considering new projects and how we want to expand the work that we're doing. So the A is agitate. And this piece is really about giving students space to talk about their fears, bringing up the things that are weighing on all of us, the changes that are taking place. There's been lots of executive orders. The landscape's changing super fast. And it is really important to be talking with students about these things, not only because they are probably aware of some of the things that are affecting themselves, their families, and their communities, but also because there are so many rumors and so much misinformation constantly. And so making sure that accurate information is being discussed and shared in the classroom is so important. Which kind of leads to that second piece, right? The educate, the E in the acronym. We need to be finding reliable sources, keeping up to date with the changes, sharing those with students, which is why we've been very happy to participate in some of this resource collection that's going on, because all of us are trying to respond as quickly as possible to everything as it changes, and knowing what those accurate sources are is essential. The next piece is something that we have, let's go back. I want to talk about the I, the inoculate. The next step in this process is really about making sure that as we do talk about all of these concerns and have accurate information about all the changes that are taking place, we're also making sure to inoculate, to emotionally prepare for the worst, but combat the fears and the anxieties that we're all experiencing with solidarity, and doing that by giving examples of the ongoing fight, legal challenges that have responded to these executive orders, stops on some of them, or pauses while things get sort of sorted out, but also focusing on student mental health and talking about trauma-informed strategies in the classroom, like the regulate, relate, reason, which I learned from the Language and Literacy Institute just recently. Some tapping and breathing work that people have been doing in their classrooms, and making sure that that is a part of what we're doing as well. And then using that to organize and unite across our classrooms and our programs, and even within programs. The original IMABE curriculum was across several programs. Teachers came together to write that curriculum, and it was designed for students to be able to give voice to their concerns. And the projects that I'm going to share about today are similar. We have collaborated in response to what's going on, and are trying to share that and get students involved as well. The original curriculum has lessons about First Amendment rights, and how you can use those. The Know Your Rights, 4th, 5th, and 6th Amendments, I think, is a great follow-up to that, and that's part of this newer project. And there's also some legislative toolkits that I used in preparing my students for the recent Day on the Hill. Now let's go to the next slide. Our blueprint, or what's kind of guiding us currently, is a statement that we recently put out. This is just called the 2025 statement, recognizing where we are in the political landscape, and really working as both a statement of like, this is important for our work, but also as a blueprint, as a map for where we're going next. So you can sign this statement as an individual or across a program or organization. IMABE is using it to help guide curriculum development, these lesson plans that are being written. And then we also use it from time to time and say, hey, the field needs to know how to do this or know more about that, and create professional development and staff training around those. And we also use that list. So if you're willing to sign on to the statement, it asks for your contact information, and then we share things as they come up. So events that we're doing, projects that we're starting, and also recently there have been other organizations providing things like ICE raid response trainings, and we quickly try to share those out to the email list as well. There is, I know it's very small text here, but this is a downloadable poster of the things that we are committing to on that statement. And it is really focused on things like creating inclusive and supportive classrooms, things around combating misinformation, making sure students have clear and accurate scientific information, all things that are, you know, CCRS focused, academic focused, but also relevant to the issues that are kind of weighing on all of us. And the link for this statement is in that handout. So if you click it, and you're interested in signing on, you can read it and sign there. Yeah, go ahead. When we talked about some of the work that we were doing at the webinar a couple of weeks ago, during that webinar, one of the participants said, we should really do a letter writing campaign. And that's the exact kind of thing that IMABE loves. We have the flexibility because we are a loosely organized group of teachers to say, hey, this is a great idea, let's just do it. And so we're starting monthly letter writing events where we will meet together. There's an option to join us virtually if you just want the solidarity and community, but you can't travel to the space, or you can join us at Rondo Community Outreach Library here in St. Paul on the morning of April 18th. So that's next Friday. And we're going to just spend some time together, share what's weighing on us. I think we can kind of put our heads together and thinking about what things we want to bring forward, co-write some letters, and then we're going to print them off in the library, bring your envelopes, bring your stamps, and then send those out. I know for me, sometimes it feels like I really want to do something, but I need that community and I need that solidarity to get started. So we want to provide a space for that. And then the last thing that I wanted to share, because I did talk earlier about that inoculation piece, is some lesson plans that I wrote with a coworker, Leah Maya, during 2020, designed for high beginning ELL. And these lessons are specifically designed for your classroom during difficult news cycles. The middle lesson plan, Fight, Flight, or Freeze, talks about feelings that you might have seeing protests in your neighborhood, seeing protests on the news, especially with backgrounds that our students have experienced in their home countries or in other places. It can be difficult and not always as hopeful and energizing to see that happening. And so it gives a foundation about how our physical and mental health is connected in the first lesson plan. What's happening in your body in the fight, flight, or freeze. And then also, how can you talk to your doctor if you need more support and you're experiencing depression? And yeah, there's a couple of points there, but I wanted to share those because I feel like these topics are becoming very relevant again to our learners.
All right, thank you so much. And next up, I'd like to introduce Cydnee Sanders and tell us what we need to know about Equity PD.
Hi, y'all. My name's Cydnee, as Patsy said. I use she, her pronouns. And yeah, so we want to just make sure that y'all know that there is some equity related PD that we have been working on, and make sure you know where to find them. Next slide, please. So first, just to make sure that y'all know that on Atlas's website, they have a whole cultural competency library, which is where we're keeping all the equity related professional development. And Patsy, if you will you click on the picture for the link? So through resources, you can click on cultural competency resources, and then you'll see on the left of your screens the featured resources. So there's a few key resources we have highlighted there. But then also on the right side, you'll see that same box that was just on the slide, and we have 5 main categories. And then you'll see the plus signs next to like anti-racism or trauma-informed practices. Click on those for some more additional subcategories. But just so you know, we have quite a few different, topics that you can really take your time and explore. Back to the slide, if you will. And then next. So one of those key ones is the new Moving Equity Forward in Adult Education video series that we have been working on. I've been collaborating with Atlas and some others on coming up with topics for this. And so we've got 8 videos so far, and each video includes discussion guides. And the idea of this came from knowing that a lot of practitioners don't have time to read lots of like long source resources, right? Books, articles. And so I really wanted to make some type of resource that is really bite-sized chunks for practitioners, that has videos, that has maybe some reading in it, right? And then really can help facilitate discussions. So Patsy, can we look at an example through the picture? Yeah. So this again is, if you look at the same right box, the cultural competency box, it's its own main category. And then on this slide, on our side, on the right side, you'll see the 8 different topics. So some of those topics are, why is DEI important? Discovering learners' funds of knowledge, being a warm demander, and tapping into diverse perspectives and teaching materials, right? So, and then a few more using like the culture tree, which I know many people in this room know what that is. And if you don't, please check that out. And then also the last 2 videos are on introducing translanguaging, especially if that's a new topic for you. And if it's not, you know, some additional ideas of how to really use translanguaging within your classroom as a key equity practice that I believe in. Patsy, will you stay on this one? Will you click on view resource and we'll just show them real quick? Yeah. And so just to show y'all what this looks like, so there's a description of the video, right? There's always the suggested action step within that to make sure that y'all know that there is at least one key thing that I hope you can try with these bite-sized tasks. And then you'll see at the bottom of the screen the link for the view discussion guide. And so we'll just pull that up. And you'll see you have a link to the PDF of the slides. You have a link to the video on YouTube, right? And then some key questions that I hope if you do this by yourself, you can journal your answers. But I hope also, because I deeply believe this work is done in community, right? So that if you do this with your colleagues, you already have these discussion questions there and you can take your time and think through them, and then talk through them. And then that second link Patsy just clicked on goes straight to the YouTube video. Perfect. And then back to the slides. And then our last one here is a bit older, but still, I think, good. And so, you know, we just want to make sure we remind people that it exists. We have the Anti-Racist Praxis Study Circle Facilitator Guide. If anyone has seen this before, you might have heard me talk about it. This was my capstone project at Hamlin. And so it has now, thanks to Patsy and great team with Atlas, has been turned into one of their Canvas courses, right? And the idea is that this is a facilitator guide so that it gives you the instructions to lead this with your own program. So you don't have to hire someone else necessarily, that y'all can do this as a community of practice together with your own program, right? And there are key 5 modules as part of it. Originally, we did this through study circles through Atlas. We've done a few of them. As of right now, we don't have any additionally planned for this moment, but this is a self-paced guide that y'all can do on your own, though you can always, you know, reach out to Patsy, reach out to me for any questions. But those 5 modules, the way it was originally set up was we did 5 2-hour meetings. And I think the ideal kind of time is like once a month. And so that you have time to look at the materials, try something out in your classroom, come back together, and then talk about what went well, what didn't go well. That way we're trying to make these practices as sustainable as possible. I will say it is a lot of information. I'm not trying to get everyone to change, you know, everything you're doing in your teaching. My guess is y'all are already probably doing a lot of anti-racist or culturally responsive practices, but sometimes I think a key part of it is being intentional about these practices. And so again, this is really to create that community of practice among your colleagues to talk about these things, try some things out, help each other adapt, and go from there. But again, so it's kind of got 5 key modules that y'all could self-paced, right? You could do this over a year and break it up into smaller chunks or whatever really works for y'all. But again, our contact information is on. If you click on the page, and actually, Patsy, will you, click on the picture and we'll show you where this is in the Atlas library. Under the anti-racism, you'll see the Anti-Racist Praxis Study Circle. Here's a longer description, right? The objectives of it, and Patsy's information there if you have any additional questions. And my information will also be, you know, part of these slides here. So always happy to talk through some ideas with people too, or questions.
Thank you so much, Cydnee. Just shout out to Cydnee for developing all of these resources from scratch. So thank you so much. The videos are excellent. You've gotten some love in the chat, and that study circle is really wonderful. And we're happy to invite people. You just need to shoot me an email and I'll make you a copy in Canvas if you'd like to do it on your own, or we'll probably be offering one in the coming year. Thank you, Cydnee. And our last but not least panelist, Heather, tell us what is going on with citizenship.
Well, there's all sorts of changes, and I just want to say, wow, to what is happening at Land, what Atlas is doing, what IMABE has been doing, and Cydnee. There's just so many resources that we can all be empowered to teach justice. And I think some of those mental health strategies I might have to look at myself for all of the turmoil and constant changing that's happening. But let's focus on citizenship. And I think about what Kris was saying with inoculate. Some of this I'm hoping will keep us inspired to continue with helping new Americans transition to becoming naturalized citizens. So some of the resources I have are listed in the document, but I have to do a shout out to my colleague who I think is here today, Krista Anderson, who is my colleague. We both teach citizenship, and she keeps me up to date with a lot of the changes. Last time I saw many of you in person was at Language and Literacy, and I heard from people at Literacy Minnesota and people from Neighborhood House, all excited because they received grants to support citizenship instruction in their programs. And Minneapolis Adult Education has been a recipient of these grants for many years. And then with the new administration coming in, we've all received a notice that the grants were frozen. And that means that these programs are not receiving funds to support citizenship instruction that also allowed for students to connect with free immigration services. What really hurt is that the program was froze, but then they went and changed the title. These were called USCIS, or United States Citizenship and Immigration Services Citizenship and Integration Grant programs under the Biden administration, and the new administration changed the name to assimilation grants, although they did not provide any grant funding. So programs like my own program, we're in the middle of a 2-year grant cycle and our funding is frozen, and we're still waiting to hear what we need to do to be compliant with these federal grants, and we have not heard anything. And my heart really goes out to those programs who spent that time and energy applying and making plans for these classes, and their grants are now frozen. I did get some updates that there are lawsuits pending on the changes in those appropriated funds. This funding is a little bit different. It's not congressionally appropriated per se. It comes out of actually the funding that people who naturalize pay through the application process, and then that money was awarded to many agencies and programs around the United States to support legal permanent residents in acquiring the English speaking, reading, and literacy skills to apply for naturalization. I like to point out that Minnesota ABE programs are still doing this work. I would recommend that you check the adult literacy hotline to see what programs are in your area that might still be offering this. The USCIS website site is still up and running. It's through the Department of Homeland Security, and there's still a lot of resources that I will send folks to learn about studying for this test. And the test is actually an interview, and we want to support people to become new Americans. It is, I think, the foundation of so many next steps for our ELL learners. And Patsy, if you go to the next slide, I want to highlight, maybe not myself, but I'm just doing a huge shout out to these 2 students here who were part of a large naturalization ceremony a few weeks ago. I want to just highlight this because in these times of turmoil, there are people with smiles on their faces. These 2 particular students were somewhat on the edge of, they didn't think that it was going to really happen because they applied in the previous administration, and then they were naturalized a few weeks ago, along with 498 other new Americans. Some updates that I'd like to share with you is that the N400 form which is the application form that people need to fill out and complete and send to the government, was updated without any notice to those of us in the field to a new notice called the 1/2025 edition. And it is now the only acceptable form, and that began last week on April 4th. So if people have an old document and they send it in after April 4th, I think it's going to be kicked back and rejected. Some of the changes on the application, I think, go against some of this teaching for justice that we're talking about. They changed some of the reformatted changes from April of last year under the Biden administration. So just be aware of this and let your students know. There was also talk all of last year that a new citizenship test was being piloted and such, and this was under the Biden administration. And that pilot was ended on 12/30 of 24, and it was stopped due to the negative feedback. And it wasn't sent out to every program who was part of the grants, but many programs said that it was just didn't help the lower level learners with their literacy skills. So that was ended. And then they are now calling it the 2008 version, and that is what is currently used within citizenship exams. So if you go to the USCIS website, you can see it's still the 2008 version. That was a version that was created under the Obama administration and used throughout until the current administration, I'm referring to it as 45, went and made some changes that were never fully implemented, and Biden changed it back to this 2008 version. So just to let people know about this, citizenship chatter around different areas is that this current administration is going to make a new N400 application different than this 1/2025 version. And people are saying it is going to be much more intrusive into the lives of people who want to naturalize. Currently, on the application, you are supplying information about yourself, your children who are living, and then your spouse, and if you have parents living and are citizens. However, there is chatter that this administration will be making changes that people will have to list all of their siblings, whether they live here in the United States or outside, and their immigration status. There are many of us who are upset about this because it could be a way that the administration is trying to flush out folks in this country. So just be aware of that. There is a teacher-sponsored news site, Citizenship News, for those of you who might use some of the citizenship teaching materials by Lynn Weintraub. She does a great word outreach with Citizenship News, and a lot of that is trying to get information from the field that people are hearing. But I like you all to know that naturalization ceremonies are still happening, and I believe interviews are still happening. These folks that you see here had their interviews in February, and then they had their ceremony in April. Oh, excuse me, at the end of March. And if you could go to the next slide, I can share with you other information. And I just want to say, let's continue to support our legal permanent residents, our LPRs, and have them apply for naturalization as much as they can. So continue to focus, educators, on the English speaking and listening, reading and writing skills that students need for the interview. We really, in our program, suggest to learners that they reach out to try to get some sort of immigration lawyer or some sort of support to navigate the current times. I have some links here. We in Minneapolis connect with Mid-Minnesota Legal Aid. They work in Hennepin County and parts of Anoka County. The Immigrant Law Center of Minnesota is also another agency with outreach. The International Institute of Minnesota can help support people in the application process, and Southern Minnesota Regional Legal Services in Southeast Minnesota. These are the information resources that I have. If you all have other resources, please share. We do that very well in adult education. And I just like to highlight this amazing couple who naturalized, and they now are going to be here with their 7 children. So kudos to Fausto and Maria. They are amazing. And keep up the good work, you all, in supporting learners. And I think
Thank you,
that's
Heather.
it for me. Thanks.
Yes, thank you so much. Well, impressively, we managed to get through all of our various presentations and have a few moments for questions. So I'm really just so pleased to have you all here and have such a great turnout. We have over 60 people who came to this session. I'm so glad that you have your access to this information. If we could maybe drop the link to all the links one more time, Megan, that would be super helpful. And just a note of closing from our former poet laureate. She writes, "We all have a part in shifting the story." So I do want to open it up to some questions as we all continue to do the work that is ours to do. What kinds of things are coming up? What can our very knowledgeable presenters, people on the ground doing the work in classrooms, what can we clarify for you, or perhaps a concern you have that you'd like us to maybe create resources or do some crowdsourcing around? And I'll let our host and co-host help me with the chat. There's been a lot shared. If there's something you in particular you want to lift up, or if one of the panelists sees something they'd like to respond to, feel free to do so. Looks like Clues is continuing to offer citizenship on Monday nights. Thank you. Megan, you're having some students passing the citizenship exam and had interviews. Krista, I don't know if you want to speak up about what you understand about social media and applications.
Yeah, I got an email that had the posting from USCIS that they were going to be reading social media posts of green card applicants and visa applicants. And it was, I think it was from Lynn Weintraub again, speculating then the next thing would be naturalization applicants, and to talk about it in interviews. So to then talk about it with our students about their social media, but it's a little uncharted still.
As so many things are at the
Yes,
moment. So
exactly.
we are, whether we like it or not, getting comfortable with some uncertainty these days. So thank you for bringing that up.
I had read that as well, and I meant to mention in the original IMABE curriculum, the 3rd lesson is actually a digital literacy lesson focused on your social media privacy settings and what types of things that you share out. My guess is it's probably not to the degree that would actually protect someone in the case of what you're describing. But if you're looking for a resource to get started talking about that, as well as some of these other topics, the original 3 lessons start out with talking about the First Amendment, refuting stereotypes, and then in the 3rd lesson, students create an I am statement that they then share, and they have the option to share it on social media with privacy settings to protect themselves from audiences that might respond or harass them online. And so it does sort of get into those settings.
Thank you. if you haven't yet had a chance to explore the IMEBE resources, I hope you'll find some time to do so. There's excellent stuff here. Thank you, Kris, and all of your colleagues. Other questions or things you want to pick the brains of these panelists about? I'll just, again, make sure people understand where some of this work is housed while I wait for any questions to come in before we close. Cultural Competency Library, of course, is on the Atlas website. The newest work is the videos that Cydnee mentioned and created, and they are just excellent. They're quite short, 10 to 15 minutes, kind of a bite-size equity lesson, and the discussion guides are excellent. Thank you to Cydnee for creating all of that work. And under anti-racism, that study circle is housed here, as well as a number of other things that you might want to know about. One thing we just recently posted was around anti-racist action. Just this week, we were able to, from a social justice symposium here at Hamlin, there was a bystander intervention tip sheet, for example. So if it's been a while since you visited some of these libraries, I do invite you to visit again. We renew things all the time, double check that links have not shifted, as many links are shifting of late. So do come back and take a look. And then a reminder that the Teaching for Justice work is largely, again, you hit the resources button, you go to social studies, and then here you choose either lesson collective, where those lessons are all in one place, including, for example, those disability rights one that we heard a testimonial about. And when you hit view resource, it actually gives a brief description, who's it for, and then takes you to a Google folder where you can find everything. So it's ready to go. Of course, it's easily adapted. You can make a copy of any of these things and make them your own. But for example, there's a slideshow and materials, and then the actual lesson plan. And within the lesson plan, we've tried hard to make it very consistent and very clear throughout, and making sure to credit the author as well, be able to see who it's for, what test scores correspond as well. And then on the LAN website, that Know Your Rights work is definitely one worth sharing with your colleagues. I'm going to stop sharing here and invite the panelists to just come back on, and we can thank you one more time. We'll of course be happy to stay on and for a few more minutes, but it's very possible that we might just choose to close the recording at this time, Astrid.
I imagine too. Hopefully you all won't resent us too much if you get to step out a little bit early on a Friday afternoon where the weather's finally good.
It's finally nice, yeah.